This video will teach you how to use AutoCAD to create a file that can be imported into the laser control program, which can then be sent to the laser engraver for cutting, scanning, or engraving. The three functions that the laser can do are cut something, engrave something, or what's called scan. Cut means you use a low speed, high power to follow a line or set of lines to cut through all the way through a material. Scan means you fill in an enclosed region. So for example, if I wanted to scan the circle, what the laser would do is raster or go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth inside the boundary of the circle with a high speed and lower power, and then it would burn or etch this solid shape into the material you're working with. The last thing is engrave. Engrave is the same process as cut. The only difference is it follows a line like it does with a cut or a curve or any shape, but it uses a higher speed and lower power, kind of like the scan mode, so it doesn't cut all the way through the material. Typically, cuts are used for the perimeter of an object. Scans are used for example, filling in text, and then engrave can be used for a variety of things. So what you have to do first in your AutoCAD file is draw the shapes and objects that you want. Again, you can have curves, lines, arcs, any kind of geometry you can create two-dimensionally, and then decide what objects are going to be cut, scanned, and engraved, and then pick 3 different colors in AutoCAD for your objects. So for this, I've picked white, red, and blue. The blue, in my case, is going to be my scan, which means it's going to fill this in. The red is going to be my engrave, and the white will be my cut. And this text, even though it's set to white, I'm going to show you how to change it to another layer in the program, which can be changed later. So if you make a mistake in your initial AutoCAD file, you can edit it in the laser control program, but it's always easier to set it up right the first time. So to change the color of an object, you simply highlight, just like you've done before. You highlight the object, and then you go to the Home tab here. You go to Properties, and then you can change the colors here, and it previews as it does. Again, don't confuse the color of an object here with the layer of an object. The layer that you place an object on in this drawing does not matter. What's important is the different colors, because the RD LaserWorks program, which looks like this, recognizes those different colors of your AutoCAD file and then creates different layers like you see here for each of those different colored objects. So anything that essentially is the same color will end up on the same layer. And why layers are important here is a little bit different than in AutoCAD. Here is where you set the settings for the speed and the power for each of your different color types, and that translates to either a cut, scan, or engrave. I'll talk more about this when I cover this program. So now you should know how to change the color and group things by color. Next, I want to talk about text. So to engrave or emboss, engrave text on a material, first thing you need is the outline of the text. So the way you do that is you use the text command like you have in the past, standard text tool, draw a box for where you want the text to go, type in your text, and then make sure you set the size of the font. So I want this to be 4 inches. So I hit 4 enter, and there's my font. Now what you have to do is explode the text so you end up with the outline or the perimeter of the text. To do that, there's a tool called Text Explode. To access that, go to the Express Tools menu, Modify Text, Text Explode. Do that, select the text, hit enter. Now you see it break up into these individual lines. Next thing you have to do is explode this again using the standard explode command, not the text explode. So you click on explode here, highlight this, right click or hit enter, which is a shortcut. Now you can go ahead and here and delete these lines, extra overlapping lines. The reason this is important is because these will be extra lines and your letters will get cut into pieces if you don't delete those interior lines. Once I've done that, I'm good to go to import this into RD LaserWorks. If you want, you can pick the color of this in advance so that it matches up with any other layers that are scanned. I'm going to leave it separate for now and show you how to change that manually in the program. So from here, you have to save this as a DXF file. .dxf. So I go File, Save As. My computer would catch up here. Save As, and then make sure you select AutoCAD, this AutoCAD 2013.dxf. All the other file types we've been working with so far are DWG. This is a DXF file that you need to make sure you save it. So give it a file name, give it a location, and hit save. I'm not going to save because I already did it. Then you open a program called RD LaserWorks. On your start menu, if you type in RD, it's this program here, RD Works V8. If you don't have it installed, see me and I'll install it. First thing you have to do after you open this program is go to the config menu, the top, go to File Para Settings. You have to make sure that this DXF unit is set to inch. By default, it's set to millimeters. This whole program works in millimeters, so it's important that you set it to inches so it converts your drawing from inches to millimeters and scales it appropriately. Otherwise, your drawing will be way too small when you go to cut it. So then I import my actual drawing. So I go File, Import, select the file where it's saved, and then notice here's my file that I'm going to import. I've already imported it, so I'm not going to do it again. Then notice, like I showed you before, every different color shows up as a different layer here. Now it's very easy for me to edit the settings for each of the different layers. So for example, my text, I want that to be a scan. So I double click this, and I notice I have the power set high, 400 millimeters a second, and the speed set high and the power set low. If you want to create a new layer for an object, for example, say I have something I want to create that I didn't do initially, you select that object and then click on one of these colors down here that's not used, then that layer will show up here. That's how you create a new layer for a specific object. Select it, click on any unused color down here, it'll show up in the list here, then you can edit that separately. So for example, if I wanted to make a new layer for the border here, I'm going to use this odd color here, and then now it created this one here, and I can double click on this, and I want this to cut this, so I'm going to use a slow speed, maybe 50 millimeters a second with 30% power, and that'll probably cut through. But these speeds and powers are relative to all different materials you're working with. If you're working with something thick, you're going to need a higher power than if you're working with something thin to cut through. So see me for a reference chart so you know what speeds and powers to use depending on what you're working with. Notice my text here is on my scan layer so that it goes back and forth and fills it in. And then this here is on my cut layer. So you have two types of cuts. You have a standard cut, which is a high power, low speed, which would cut all the way through. But then if you wanted to engrave that line, in other words, just burn it into the material and not cut all the way through, you should set the speed a little bit faster and the power a little bit lower, similar to that of your scan. That'll make it so it engraves the line and it doesn't cut all the way through. It's a good idea to do a test file on a piece of scrap material first to make sure all your settings are set right before you waste a whole piece of larger material to make your object. When you're done setting your settings here, you want to save this file first, so make sure you don't lose your actual tutorial. So I'm going to save this as tutorial, and this is you can open this again day to day. Then when you're absolutely all done, you hit save to U file. This is your actual output file that you would walk over to the laser with a USB key. So you want to insert the USB key, scroll down here, find it. It doesn't show up here because I don't have one plugged in. Give it a file name and then hit save. Then when it's done, you're going to get a strange error message that shows up something like this. So I'll create this and save this here, default. When you're done, you'll get this window here that shows these crazy characters here means that it was successful. Then you would pull out your pen drive, take it over to the laser, and see your teacher for instruction on how to use the laser engraver. Thank you for watching.